Yeah,
Yes,
sorry.
ma'am.
Because of some internet problem, it's
Good morning,
delayed.
ma'am.
Yeah, good morning. I think already the topics ASOM and eustachian tube pathology and external ear infections have been covered, right? Previously. So today, hello.
Ma'am.
Today I'm going to give a brief talk on otitis media, that is chronic suppurative otitis media. Before we go for the topic, we should have some idea about the terminology. What is otitis media? That is chronic suppurative inflammation of the middle ear cleft, mucosa of the middle ear cleft. So then the question arises, what is middle ear cleft? Middle ear cleft means the middle ear proper having epitympanum, mesotympanum, hypotympanum, anteriorly the eustachian tube, posteriorly it is connected to the mastoid antrum and the mastoid air cell system through adductors. All these structures together we call it middle ear cleft because they are all combined. So anteriorly the eustachian tube is connected to the nasopharynx and the oropharynx. So whenever there is any inflammation in any one of these structures, the infection can proceed from one of the places to the other. So that is why the otitis media is very important. That is the inflammation of the middle ear cleft. So coming to otitis media, we have acute otitis media, chronic otitis media. Am I audible to you? Hello? Am
Yes,
I
ma'am.
audible to
Yes,
you? Yeah.
ma'am.
Sorry, because I'm
Ma'am.
not able. Yeah, yeah. So coming to today, we are going to have a brief talk on chronic suppurative otitis media, right? In chronic suppurative otitis media, again we are having two types. One is the benign or safe type. The second one is the aticoantral type or unsafe type. So coming to definition of the chronic suppurative otitis media, it is the long-standing inflammation and infection of the mucosa of the middle ear cleft, and it is mainly characterized by three features. One is continuous or intermittent discharge through a persistent perforation in the tympanic membrane, and the third one is it is also associated with hearing loss. So three components. One is the hearing loss, second is the perforation in the tympanic membrane, third is intermittent or continuous discharge. So coming to epidemiology, the incidence is very higher in developing countries. And the predisposing factors, as you all know, it is the poor socio-economic status, poor nutrition, lack of health education, and it mainly affects the all the age groups, but mainly it is common in the children and in the infants because of the reasons which I am going to enumerate later. So coming to types of CSOM, depending on the pathology, you can divide it into mucosal or squamosal. One is the mucosal pathology, second is squamosal pathology. Depending on the discharge, type of discharge present, we call it active or inactive or healed, right? Active means the discharge is present. Inactive means the discharge is not present. Healed means already the inflammation has healed, leaving the sequelae. And depending on the nature of the disease, we divide mainly it into safe type or tubotympanic type. Second, unsafe type or aticoantral type or squamous type. So coming to otitis media, you can grossly divide it into mucosal disease and squamosal disease. Squamosal disease, you can also call it unsafe or aticoantral, where it is the active and inactive types. In inactive, you will get retraction pockets in the pars tensa or pars flaccida. In the active type, you will get cholesteatoma with discharge. Whereas in the mucosal disease, it is also called tubotympanic disease or tape disease. So it also again divided it into active, inactive, and healed. Active is chronic suppurative inflammation. Inactive is Where there is a perforation, the discharge is present on and off, not regularly. Field means there is no discharge for the past so many months, and it may leave some sequelae like adhesions, tympanosclerosis. Am I audible to you? Am I clear to you?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So, depending on the property, we can divide it into tubotympanic type and aticoantral type. As I already told you, tubotympanic or mucosal or safe, and aticoantral or unsafe, okay, or spamosal. So, what are the differences between the both? Why we divide it into two types? So it's mainly because of the discharge quality. The quality of discharge in the tubotympanic, it is profuse, mucoid, odorless, not blood stained, and it is usually influenced by upper respiratory tract infections. So whenever there is any infection from outside, maybe the cold or through the sinusitis or tonsillitis or any teeth infection, it can come through the eustachian tube and it will affect the middle ear. So it is always affected by upper respiratory tract infections. During the times of cold and all those, the discharge increases. Whereas in aticoantral type, the discharge is small, scanty, foul-smelling, purulent, and it is not influenced by any of these because it is autonomous. Second is the type of perforation. Type of perforation. Perforation is perforation in the tympanic membrane. It is either usually it is the central perforation in tubotympanic type. Whereas in aticoantral, it is the marginal perforation or attic perforation. So coming to granulations. Granulations means it's nothing but a specialized angiomatous tissue that is reddish, multiple small areas. They are very uncommon in tubotympanic type, whereas they are more common in aticoantral type of disease. So coming to polyp. What is a polyp? Polyp is nothing but a hypertrophy pedunculated mucosa. So if it is coming to ear, oral polyp means mucosa of the middle ear. So usually this type of polyps which are present in tubotympanic type are pale, whereas in aticoantral type of disease, they are very red and fleshy. And coming to cholesteatoma. Cholesteatoma, it is absent in tubotympanic type of disease, whereas in aticoantral it is present. And coming to complications, they are very rare in tubotympanic because the inflammation, it does not cross the mucoperiosteal lining of the middle ear cleft. So the complications rate is very rare, whereas it is very common in aticoantral type. Why? Because of the underlying bone infection. And coming to audiogram, there will be mild to moderate conductive type of deafness in tubotympanic type, whereas conductive or mixed deafness you see in aticoantral type. So today we will go for tubotympanic type of disease. Is it clear? Students, is it clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Am I going very fast?
No, ma'am.
Because
No,
I'm not
ma'am.
able to see. Okay, that's good. So coming to tubotympanic type of disease, that is also called mucosal disease, and there is no evidence of any invasion of the squamous epithelium. So why we call it? It affects only the mucosa of the middle ear cleft. Please remember that tubotympanic means only the mucosa of the middle ear cleft. Why it is called tubotympanic? Tube means eustachian tube. Tympanum means middle ear. So any infection in the nasopharynx, oropharynx, sinuses, teeth, all that infection which comes through the eustachian tube and affects the middle ear, we call it tubotympanic. And it is also called safe type. So it can be active or inactive. In active, you will see perforation of the pars tensa with inflammation of the mucosa, and there will be discharge, mucopurulent discharge. Please remember, mucoid element is always present in otitis media, whereas in external ear infections, you will not see mucous element. Whether it is tubotympanic or aticoantral, you will see the mucoid element. But in tubotympanic, the discharge is mucoid or mucopurulent, but never blood stained. Please remember. Whereas in aticoantral, you may see blood stained discharge because of the granulations. And in inactive type, there will be permanent perforation of the pars tensa, and the middle ear mucosa is very much inflamed, and there is no discharge. And the third variety in the tubotympanic is healed type. Healed means it is a nothing but the burnt out disease. So it has healed, but there are some sequelae. So the patient may have some adhesions or tympanosclerosis or erosion of the ossicles. So there will be some complications will be there. So we will go to tubotympanic disease. So that is the infection which is coming through the eustachian tube to affect the middle ear cleft. That is called tubotympanic disease. So the features of tubotympanic disease is the disease is confined to the eustachian tube and anterior and inferior part of the mesotympanum. As you all know, the middle ear has epitympanum upper part, mesotympanum middle part, hypotympanum down part. So it is limited to the mesotympanum and hypotympanum and the eustachian tube. Usually it starts in the childhood. So SAFE type is very common in all age groups, but more common in childhood. Why? Because of the anatomy of the eustachian tube, which is more horizontal, shorter, wider. Yeah, very good. So because of that, the infection can directly get into the middle ear. So it is very common in childhood. And also it is very common in infantile group because of the faulty feeding habits. So because they are fed in a horizontal position, what happens, whatever feeding has been done afterwards, the remnant milk will go into nasopharynx through eustachian tube, directly it will enter the middle ear. So the infants may get affected very fast. Next, the other feature is it always presents with a central perforation and there is no underlying bone infection. Please remember these are the clinical features. One is the type of discharge, second is the type of perforation, and the infection is coming only through the eustachian tube.
Stop.
Yeah, please. What's up? So coming to etiology, why it is coming the tubotympanic type of otitis media? It could be a sequel of acute otitis media. Acute otitis media means already that it has been covered previously. That is acute inflammation of the middle ear cleft. Maybe it's because of the viral fevers or maybe because of some bacterial infections. So usually if it is not, when it is not treated properly or incompletely treated, acute suppurative otitis media can lead to chronic suppurative otitis media. Or there may be persistent tonsillitis or any caries tooth or any sinusitis or any other congenital abnormalities which is predisposing to the infection in the nasopharynx and oropharynx can easily push the infection through the eustachian tube into the middle ear. And the other one is the nasal allergy. That is also very, very common. The patient usually, why in what way the allergy causes the middle ear infection? Because the allergy causes mucosal edema, which blocks the eustachian tube. So with that, there will be middle ear, air is absorbed and it may result in effusion. And the secondary bacterial infection, it can go in for suppurative otitis media. The other one is any autoimmune disease, craniofacial abnormalities like cleft palate and GERD, that is gastroesophageal reflux diseases. All these things can easily cause the or predispose to the chronic suppurative otitis media. So coming to bacteriology, the most common is Staphylococcus or Streptococcus, but we may also see in chronic, the most important is Pseudomonas aeruginosa, very, very common organism, Beta proteus, Escherichia coli, Staphylococcus aureus, Bacteroides fragilis, and anaerobic streptococci. So coming to symptoms, usually as you all know, to the OP, the patient comes to you with the history of ear discharge. So discharge may be, so it's not just days, it may be months. Once you call it chronic means it should be more than 5 to 6 weeks, or at least it should be more than 2 to 3 months. That is recurrent discharge which has been coming. And usually they give the history of ear discharge preceded by acute cold or any exanthematous fever, and the patient develops severe pain in the ear, then suddenly there is appearance of the discharge and disappearance of the pain. So that gives a history, that gives a clue that the patient has suffered from the upper respiratory tract infection through Eustachian tube, which has caused ASOM, then followed by perforation. So the patient can also give you a history of hearing loss. Why the patient will have hearing loss? Because instead of air media, it has been filled with the exudate. And once there is a perforation, the acoustics have been lost. And the other one, fever. Fever, only history of fever is there, but in chronic suppurative otitis media, hardly you see any fever. So coming to signs, it is very, very important. One is profuse mucopurulent discharge, non-foul smelling, not blood stain. Please, you have to remember it very well because even in the exam clinicals, we give you only tubotympanic type of disease. So the main important symptom or the characteristic feature of the discharge in tubotympanic is profuse or intermittent or persistent, but usually it is intermittent, profuse mucopurulent discharge, not blood stain, not foul smelling, associated with hearing loss. Usually it is of conductive type. On examination, you will see a central perforation. What do you mean by central perforation? Do you have any idea, students? Am I audible to you?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. If you have any idea, you tell. Otherwise, no issues. So, if you do you know what is tympanic membrane?
Perforation
Yeah.
of past tense.
Very good, very good. So, the tympanic membrane, it is the lateral wall of the middle ear. It is divided into pars tensa and pars flaccida. So, if there is a perforation in the pars tensa and all around surrounded by pars tensa, we call it central perforation. So, it may be small central or moderate central or big central. Okay. So, depending on the type, we can call it anterior, posterior, and if it almost it involves all the three, we can also call it all the three quadrants subtotal. So the main important feature is central perforation, conductive type of hearing loss, and typical characteristic discharge. And the middle ear mucosa is usually congested, and there may or may not be a polyp, which is pale in color. And the ossicular chain erosion is very rare. And end result, you may see tympanosclerosis sometimes. Yeah, coming to types of perforation. Perforation in the pars tensa surrounded all around by pars tensa. You should have an idea about it. It's very, very important. Here you are able to see the perforation and it is a dry perforation, dry subtotal perforation where you are able to see the middle ear, medial wall of the middle ear. Yeah. Are you seeing here? This is the medial wall of the middle ear. And the second is central perforation. Then coming to marginal perforation, this is only to tell you what are the types of perforation I am telling you. The other perforation is the perforation in the attic region or pars flaccida. Third one is marginal perforation, perforation in the postero-superior quadrant of the pars tensa. And one side is the bone, the other side is the pars tensa. So marginal perforation and attic perforations you always see in aticoantral type of disease, which is addictive. Whereas in tubotympanic, you see only central perforation. So now I'll tell you, this is the central perforation. See, this is the central, anteriorly, there is a small central perforation. Here central perforation medium sized involving the anterior quadrant and antero-inferior and posterior-inferior. This is subtotal perforation involving most of the pars tensa. This is total. Next, here it is the attic perforation, means perforation in the pars flaccida. And this is the marginal perforation, that is in the posterior-superior quadrant of pars tensa. Please remember, it's also in the pars tensa, but the posterior-superior part. The most important feature is one side is the pars tensa, the other side is the bone. So whereas attic, this perforation and this perforation you see only in aticoantral type of disease or unsafe disease or squamosal type of disease. Whereas all the central types of perforation you see in tubotympanic type of disease. So coming to types of stages. Stages, what are the? One is active stage, quiescent stage, inactive stage, and healed stage. Coming to active stage, the discharge, when you call it active, when there is discharging at the time of examination, we call it active disease. What is quiescent stage? That is, there is history of discharge in the recent past, but at the time of examination, there is no discharge. So, the temporarily transient phase when the discharge has stopped. Coming to third one, inactive stage, where there is no discharge for 3 to 6 months. Then we call it inactive because it's very, very important to know the staging. Because the treatment part for the active is different and inactive is different, right? Then the last one is the healed stage, where the perforation has healed permanently and there is no middle ear infection. So coming to investigation, am I audible to you? Hello.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Coming to investigations, you have to examine the ear under microscope. First thing is you are going to do the clinical examination thoroughly, and you'll come to a conclusion the patient has a central perforation with some mucoid discharge. Okay, but that is not enough. And you do tuning fork tests, you will know conductive type of lesions, there is discharge and all that. But you have to confirm your diagnosis. For that sake, the most important investigation is examination under microscope. Whenever any examiner asks you how you are going to treat your patient of CSOL, first you say, first I will examine it under microscope to confirm my clinical findings. Second is you have to take the pus in active diseases. While examining, you take the pus and send it for culture and sensitivity for better cure. Third is audiological assessment to know whether the patient has any deafness, hearing loss. If so, whether it is conductive or mixed or sensory neural. Third is go for X-ray mastoids. Usually we go for loss view. You should also have an idea about other views, but usually we take X-ray both mastoids. Why do we take X-ray mastoids? Because it is very much available, very cheap, and it will give some idea about the normal structure of the middle cleft. That is whether the mastoids is normal in structure, whether it is cellular or sclerotic. Normally it is cellular. Sclerotic you see in chronic infections and if there whether there is any cholesteatoma or already there is a post-operative case. So all this information is given by X-ray mastoids. And we can also go for CT scan temporal. Definitely it is superior to mastoids. Usually we go for this whenever we suspect any complications or whenever it is a aticoantral type of disease, we definitely go for CT scan temporal bone because it will give a very correct information. Then we do basic investigations like complete blood picture, urine examination, clotting time, bleeding time, random blood sugar, blood urea, serum creatinine, X-ray chest, ECG. That is only to see whether the patient is fit for surgery or not. The other most important is X-ray paranasal sinuses. Why paranasal sinuses we take? Because we want to rule out whether there is any infection in the sinus. All predisposing factors which are there all should be investigated thoroughly. So before we are going for any treatment part, first you have to treat the surrounding structures which is giving recurrent infection. And most important is diagnostic nasal endoscopy to see whether there is any sinusitis or deviated nasal septum or any polyps or any tumor which is blocking the eustachian tube. Lastly, we can also do eustachian tube function test to see whether there is any anomaly in the eustachian tube. So coming to examination of the microscope, it is mainly to confirm the otoscopic findings while doing clinicals and to see whether there is any perforation or not. If there is perforation, what is the type of perforation? Is it central or aortic or what is the site? whether it is anterior, posterior, subtotal, and what is the size, and how are the margins. Why we should be very specific about margins, because in active the margins are edematous, whereas in inactive the margins are very thin and epithelialized, and appearance of the middle ear through perforation. Why? What do you want to see? You want to see any congestion is there in the medial wall of the middle ear, any edema is there, any polyp is there, any discharge is there, any cholesterol of flakes are there. All these we can see under microscope. The other last is presence of polyp or any granulation tissue is there. So all these things can be cleared by examining it under microscope. The other one is pure tone audiogram. This is the audiological investigation. It's mainly to know whether the patient has any hearing loss. So it is showing clearly the conductive hearing loss. Conductive hearing loss. This is the sensory part, and this is the bone conduction. This is air conduction. So this is airborne gap. So it shows the patient is suffering from conductive type of deafness. So to differentiate from conductive from sensorineural hearing loss, and also to know the degree of hearing loss, we do pure tone audiometry. This is the X-ray master's what I have shown you. See, we are seeing the cellularity. It is normal. So that is mainly to know the pneumatization of cells. Any haziness is there or clouding is there. Any whether the texture of the master is normal or not. The boundaries are normal or not. And coming to basic investigations, what I have enumerated again, once again, it has been shown. This is X-ray paranasal sinuses. You can see there is a haziness in the right sinus. So it is showing the patient has chronic sinusitis on the right side, maxillary sinusitis. Definitely, this may be the predisposing factor for, though we treat the middle ear, unless we treat the sinusitis, again the patient may come back to you with a discharge because of the recurrent infection. And this is the diagnostic nasal endoscopy. What you are seeing is the adenoid mass in the posterior part. So that may be blocking the eustachian tube. So coming to eustachian tube functions, already it has been covered, but you should have an idea what are the eustachian tube functions. Valsalva, Polisser test, catheterization, Toynbee's test, tympanometry, and radiological test. And coming to medical treatment. Medical treatment, why do you want to treat the patient? After investigations, first you are done physical examination. First you should listen to the patient carefully. History taking is very, very important. You should not miss. Second, thorough clinical examination. Third, correct investigations. Now you come to a conclusion. Now you have investigated and you have evaluated. Now you come to a conclusion. Now, after knowing the patient has been suffering from some otitis media, then you have to plan. Suppose if it is tubotympanic type of disease, it has been confirmed it is a tubotympanic type of disease because of the central perforation, because of the character of the discharge, and no complications, and mild to moderate conductive hearing loss, and it may be active or inactive. So, what is your main goal? What do you want to do? Most important is control the infection. Second is make the patient symptom free. Control the infection. Make the patient symptom free of discharge, recurrent discharge, and the most important is um, prevent the intracranial complications and improve the hearing. So, four goals: control the infection and control the discharge, improve hearing mechanism, prevent the complications. So, for that, suppose if it is active, the discharge is present. What do? You have to do oral toilet. That is mainly by dry mopping. And wet mopping, we can do it with syringing or by suction. Always, actually, the suction irrigation is the best under microscope. And after doing all that, you have to use topical antibiotics or systemic antibiotics depending on the severity of the infection. You can give antihistamine and you can give local steroids and precautions. All the most important is the precautions. What are the precautions you tell? One is don't let water go inside. That's very, very important. Don't put any oil drops or anything. Avoid faulty feeding habits. Avoid swimming during the times of cold or whenever the patient is suffering from chronic suppurative otitis media. Avoid nose blowing, which may flush the infection through the eustachian tube into the middle ear. So most important is avoid all the precipitating factors. Second is treat the predisposing factors like if there is deviated nasal septum or sinusitis or tonsillitis or adenoiditis, first you treat that. Definitely there will not be any infection. Yeah, then you should plan for, as you are giving antibiotics and all this, you should also treat the predisposing factors and wait for 3 to 4 weeks till the discharge disappears. Once the patient becomes totally free of discharge, that is minimum 6 to 7 weeks you have to wait. Then you can plan for the surgical treatment. So medical treatment is only to make the ear dry to prevent the infection. Then you can plan for surgical treatment. So what are the causes for medical failure of medical treatment? Once you think, in spite of giving all the medical treatment, steroids, steroid drops, antibiotic drops, antihistamines, and treating the adenoids and sinuses, still the patient is having recurrent infection. What could be the cause? It could be poor drainage of inflammatory exudate from the middle ear. So the oral toilet has not been done properly. And there may be presence of infection and granulations in the mastoid. So that could be the reason the infection is not getting treated. And or the organism may be more virulent, or maybe there are resistant organisms, or there may be reinfection. After treating the infection, again there may be reinfection through the eustachian tube. That's why whenever there is any adenoiditis or sinusitis, it should be treated thoroughly. Or there may be coincidental allergy, associated allergy which should be treated. Or there may be infection in the mastoid system. So whenever there is any small perforation, try to close it. Pinhole perforation, always you can do chemical pottery. So that usually we use trichloroacetic acid to the margins. Usually the margin epithelium is destroyed and usually there may be proliferation and usually it tries to close by itself. Suppose if the perforation is little bigger, then what do? Perforation is very big, more than 2 to 3 millimeters, you have to go for meringoplasty or tympanoplasty. So what is meringoplasty? That is repair of the tympanic membrane. Repair of the tympanic membrane. What will happen? Suppose there is no infection, but still the tympanic membrane is open. What will happen whenever there is entry of water from outside? What will happen? There will be again recurrent infection of the middle ear, otitis media. So for that sake, you have to close the hole. So what are the prerequisites for closing it? It should always be a dry ear. There should not be any cholesteatoma. First condition is there should not be any cholesteatoma. There should not be any complications. So it should be a dry ear, normal eustachian tube function, and the inner ear should be functioning. That is so dry ear, normal eustachian tube function, and good cochlear reserve. And it predominantly conductive type of hearing loss. And there is no secondary infection. And usually the types, anyway, we are going to cover all these surgeries in the next class after we complete the apicoantral type of disease. So types of grafts could be onlay or underlay. So what is tympanoplasty? Just have an idea. Tympanoplasty is repair and reconstruction of the middle ear is called tympanoplasty. Meringoplasty is nothing but a type 1 tympanoplasty where we only repair the tympanic membrane, whereas all the other things are normal in the middle ear. So depending on the type 1, type 2, type 3, type 4, type 5. So type 1, everything is normal. The middle ear structures, the ossicular chain, all are normal. Only there is a hole in the tympanic membrane. So we do meringoplasty. Whereas in type 2, there will be defect in ossicles, that is malleus and incus. Usually they are eroded. Only malleus is eroded in type 2. Type 3 malleus and incus both are eroded. So directly we put the graft over the stapes head. Whereas in type 4, it's a mobile stapes foot plate, sound pressure transformation is given up. Type 5, fixed stapes foot plate. So sound pressure is to the penetration. Suppose uh, Suppose if there is infection persistent, the discharge is persistent even after doing all taking all precautions and doing treating all the predisposing factors, the discharge is persistent. Then you should plan for mastoid exploration. That's very important, especially in tubotympanic type of disease. We should plan for cortical mastoidectomy, which I am going to take it in the next class. Just a minute, please. Please be in touch. I'm going to show you some more slides. Are you there? Am I audible to you? Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So once again, I'm just brushing up. So, what is the definition? As I told you, is a chronic suppurative infection of the medullary cleft mucosa, characterized by, so chronic means it should be minimum more than 3 months. It should be characterized by persistent perforation of the tympar stensa, and history of ear discharge and hearing loss. What are the types? Tubotympanic and aticoantral. Tubotympanic means chronic pyogenic infection of the medullary cleft mucosa with persistent perforation pars stensa. So this is medullary cleft. This is for your idea, I am telling you. This is the mastoid cavity with mastoid air cells. This is the medullary proper, eustachian tube, and this is the adductus, that is the connecting bridge. So the medullary cleft means whole of the medullary proper, epitympanum, mesotympanum, hypotympanum, anteriorly the eustachian tube, and the posteriorly mastoid antrum and the air cell system connected through adductus. So whenever there is any infection, it may affect all the structures. That's why whenever otitis media means, it is inflammation of the medullary cleft. It is not just the medullary proper. Whereas in usually in tubotympanic type of disease, anterior and inferior parts are affected of the medullary. Whereas in aticoantral type, posterior part is more affected. So coming to perforations, I already told you, central it may be small, medium, large or subtotal. Okay, marginal usually you see in aticoantral type of disease. So how do you make it into different quadrants? How do you make it into different quadrants? So draw a line along the handle of medius. Draw a line along the handle of malleus and bisect at the level of umbo. You can divide it into 4 parts: anterior, antero-superior, postero-superior, antero-inferior, postero-inferior. So now you can see there is a small dry perforation. Please, remember it is an inactive perforation in the antero-inferior part. Again, the little bigger perforation in the anterior part. Here, there is still medium type of perforation involving antero-inferior and postero-inferior part. It is a large perforation affecting more than 40%. It's a subtotal perforation when it involves all the 4 quadrants. This is marginal perforation. This is for your idea, I am telling you. Marginal perforation, it is a perforation seen in the posterior-superior quadrant of pars tensa. One side is the destruction of the bone, osteitis. This is again marginal perforation. This is attic perforation. This again marginal and attic perforations you see in aticoantral type of disease. These are retractions, grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, grade 4. I will not go into details now. This is posto-superior retraction pocket. This is attic retraction. So coming to examination of the ear, most important, how do you examine the ear? First, the preauricular region to see whether there is any sinus or lymph node. What is the size of the pinna? Position of the pinna? Is there any deformity or swelling? Any post-oral region scars are there? Swellings are there? External auditory canal opening. Then examination of the tympanic membrane. Already I have covered it. Then most important is tracheal tenderness. Please remember tracheal tenderness and mastoid tenderness. Tracheal tenderness, it is associated with otitis externa, whereas mastoid tenderness is very important. How you elicit mastoid tenderness is also very important. Because mastoid media, whereas the tenderness is seen in otitis externa. So, as you know, the predisposing factors are recurrent upper respiratory tract infections, any allergies, pre-existing otitis media with effusion, cleft palate, any immunodeficiency states like diabetes or AIDS, poor socioeconomic status. Bacteria responsible, Staphylococcus, Pseudomonas, Klebsiella, Proteus, Streptococcus, bacteroids. Routes of infection, as I told you, one is through the eustachian tube. So that's why nose blowing, repeated nose blowing, regurgitation of milk in infants because of faulty feeding habits and upper respiratory tract infections. Second route is via tympanic membrane perforations. So whenever the patient takes a bath or whenever the water goes inside through the existing perforation. Third is through blood, but it is very rare. So pathological changes you see in tubotympanic type. Normally, eardrum is the central perforation. Ossicles, there may be tympanosterosis, there may be destruction of the ossicles sometimes. Middle ear mucosa is edematous and pale pink. Mastoid bone shows sclerosis. Clinical features: discharge, profuse, mucoid or mucopurulent, intermittent, odorless, not blood stained. Hearing loss, usually conductive type of, and it is absent. Hearing loss is absent in very small, tiny perforations. Tympanic membrane, usually it is central perforation. So coming to stages of tubotympanic disease, active disease, usually active means the discharge is present, perforation is present. Quiescent means the discharge is present but it is not sealed. Inactive, there is no discharge. So there are some differences between aticoantral and tubotympanic type of disease. Whereas in aticoantral, the discharge is scanty, continuous, purulent, bloodstained, false smiling. Whereas in tubotympanic, it is profuse, intermittent, mucoid, not bloodstained, not false smelling. The perforation in tubotympanic is central, whereas here it is attic or marginal. So other type of otitis media is tuberculous otitis media. Very, very important. It is a specific infection. Because of specific infection, the most important features of tuberculous otitis media is painless, odorless discharge. And it is refractory to antibiotic. Whatever antibiotic we give, it will not get treated. And the perforations are multiple tympanic membrane perforations. Painless, odorless discharge, not amenable to antibiotics. Middle ear mucosa is pale and pale granulations in the mastoid and middle ear. Severe deafness. Deafness is disproportionately more because of the bony necrosis. Facial palsy and labyrinthitis is very common. The treatment is mainly the antituberculous and cortical mastoidectomy. See, you can see multiple perforations. Thank you. We'll again see in the on next Tuesday. Tuesday, 11 o'clock with aticoantral type of disease. I hope you have understood it. Do you have any questions? Am I audible to you? Am I audible to you?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you have any question?
No, ma'am.
Is it clear for you?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
No, ma'am.
Today itself, you please go and read immediately after this. You go through your textbooks, and then next week, after completing Antiquarian, we are going to give you some assignment on the total CSY. So before that, please complete completely you read it. This is the best time you can read. You can complete. Okay. Thank you.